DeWitt County at Warner Hospital in Clinton. Dr. Bobot is an expert at identifying and treating pulmonology health conditions. Get the right diagnosis and treatment for your breathing problem with an experienced pulmonologist. For healthier breathing, book an appointment in Clinton today. Call 217-784-2212.
News time, 8 minutes after 8 o'clock on this Monday. Top of the morning from the newsroom of Regional Radio and DeWittDailyNews.com. I'm Seth Lawrence with this local news update. The DeWitt County Board has been busy hearing from solar companies seeking to develop in DeWitt County. In just the last month, the county board has had 4 applications come to them, and Board Chair Joe Whitty reminds these applications have to have a hearing within 60 days of the filing. This has been a huge time commitment by the board because of a change the county made in the hearing process.
When this came out, it seemed to be a statute that was derived based on the wind and solar companies going to the state with their request. It just looked like it had everything, they might want on their wish list. And that was all signed by the governor, and it became statute. So the frustration was they didn't consider, the impact of the counties, especially when it comes to, the time frame. It seems reasonable. If you get an application, you should be able to process that in a couple months. What if you get 4? And you've got 4 massive applications and a lot of information to get through. There just didn't seem to be much consideration for the impacts to those who'd be processing these.
At last week's county board meeting, Whitty indicates the county approved agreements with Chastain and Associates for supervision during the building process. He reminds the county has a part-time zoning administrator, and so they need this oversight during the building process.
Again, we have a part-time zoning administrator, and they get bombarded with, 4 applications in a month's time. We learned from the wind hearing years ago that when you are staffed for being able to manage the day-to-day business in the county, and then you get, a very large project like that, we need some help. And so we have a provision in our ordinance that when we get to the point, we're past the siting hearing now, when we get to the time where we have to look at the building permits, start reviewing those for completeness, that doesn't go to the board. That's just the zoning office. And so we have a provision where we can engage the services of an engineer to assist the zoning administrator and then be on site for a lot of the construction activities and make sure things are being constructed. So
many are watching the proposed solar development process in Farmer City because the Farmer City Council has not given the blessing on that project. However, depending on how it plays out, Whitty indicates the board has been advised by their legal representation, the state's attorney, they would likely need to approve the project if the company meets all the guidelines laid out by the state of Illinois.
If Farmer City doesn't want this, they've sent in a letter of objection. Does that mean that they are unable, they being the applicant, would be unable to meet the requirements that we say, they should have the agreement with the municipality? And and I think as we got another opportunity to kind of reread that statute, I think some of us are falling on the side of, well, maybe we don't have that authority. So, Mr. Markwell has weighed in. I think if you look at the text on paper, it doesn't look like we could reject an application simply because they're coming in without the approval of the municipality. But, that's state statute and what we are allowed to do from a county perspective. I think municipalities might have slightly different interpretation, and, I guess they could present a legal argument otherwise. But at this point, we don't have an application, so we don't have to deal with that issue. I think if they decide to move forward, we're going to have to take our state's attorney's legal advice. And, I guess if there's other legal opinions out there, it'd be interesting to hear them.
Whitty indicates the process to get an application through the local government could be even less than 60 days. While not imminent, he's heard rumblings the state could be considering condensing the timeline even further. The 57th Annual Apple and Pork Festival is this weekend in Clinton. Joey Long is the director of the C.H. Moore Homestead and DeWitt County Museum and explains the Apple and Pork Festival was originally established to raise funds to restore the C.H. Moore Mansion, and that goal holds true still today.
All right, so we have to go way back in time, don't we? The Apple and Pork Festival was established to provide the funds necessary to take a dilapidated mansion and turn it into the beautiful museum that it has become today. So we'll go back a little farther, and I'll give you a little history even on how the museum came to be. So back in the 1960s, there was a group of individuals here in DeWitt County who got together and decided that they would like to start either a historical society or a museum. They didn't really care which. There was a man in Clinton named Mr. Kent who had an amazing collection of items and artifacts related to the history of the county. So he went to the group and said, well, if you do a museum, then I will let you borrow some of my artifacts. Okay, it's going to be a museum. So the museum went into a vacated hardware store on the south side of the square. And very soon they were running out of space. Meanwhile, the house that we now know as the C.H. Moore Homestead was standing unoccupied on the north edge of town and had served as just kind of an income for the C.H. Moore Trust over the years as a rental income.
Be sure to find comprehensive coverage of this year's Apple and Pork Festival at DeWittDailyNews.com and right here at Regional Radio. Get news anytime at DeWittDailyNews.com. Local sports is next.
Selection for a new Chevrolet is here at Baum Chevrolet Buick in Clinton and Farmer City. This is Scott Baum. Yes, from the Corvettes to the Suburbans and everything to help your family or business, Chevrolet has value options for your needs. This month, see our Silverado trucks in 1500, 2500, and 3500s in gas or diesel. Our Silverados have big savings with more discounts if you trade yours in. Chevrolet, together let's drive. BaumChevyBuick.com, right from the start.
With its increased efficiency and lower fuel costs, ag producers know that propane is better for their bottom line. And now, participating in the Propane Farm Research Program can impact your bottom line. Share your propane equipment performance data, and you can receive compensation, like up to $5,000 towards towable generators and generators for backup power, and up to $2,000 for propane building heat systems. To take advantage of all the ways propane is better for your bottom line, start your application today at propane.com/PFRP.
With SRN Sports, I'm Jason Walker. Week 3 of the NFL season looked like this. Kansas City Chiefs finally getting in the win column, defeating the New York Giants 22-9. San Francisco edging Arizona 16-15. Chicago over Dallas 31-14. Seattle beat New Orleans 44-13, while the Chargers took care of Denver 23-20. Washington over Las Vegas 41-24. It was Tampa Bay 29, the Jets 27, Pittsburgh 21, New England 14, Philadelphia 33, and the Rams 26. Elsewhere, Minnesota 48, Cincinnati 10. Jacksonville defeated Houston 17-10. It was Indianapolis 41, Tennessee 20, Cleveland 13, Green Bay 10. Carolina shut out Atlanta 30-0. SRN Sports. About to wrap up the season now in Major League Baseball. Pittsburgh shut out the Athletics 11-0. Atlanta 6, Detroit 2. San Diego beat the White Sox 3-2. Colorado 3, the Angels 1. Miami beat Texas 4-2. Minnesota 6, Cleveland 2. Tampa Bay over Boston 7-3. Yankees beat Baltimore 7-1. Toronto 8, Kansas City 5, and Seattle beat Houston 7-3. Over in the National League, Cincinnati 1, the Cubs 0. San Francisco edged past the Dodgers 3-1. Arizona beat Philadelphia 9-2. Washington took care of the Mets just barely 3-2. St. Louis 5, Milwaukee 1. College football rankings are out. Ohio State still number 1. Miami, though, moves up to the number 2 spot. Penn State is 3rd, LSU 4, and number 5 is Georgia. This is SRN Sports.
Time now for a look at sports. I'm Seth Lawrence with this report. Caleb Williams tied a career high with 4 touchdown passes, and Chicago gave Ben Johnson his first win as an NFL coach by defeating the Dallas Cowboys 31-14 on Sunday. The 1-2 Bears got a win they sorely needed, coming off a 52-21 blowout loss at Detroit. Johnson called out the team's practice habits during the week, saying they were not championship caliber, but he had to like what he saw against the 1-2 Cowboys. His offense broke off several big plays, racking up 385 yards. Williams looked more like the quarterback the Bears needed him to become than the one who faded after a strong first 2 weeks. The number 1 overall pick from last year completed 19 of 28 passes for 298 yards and a 142.6 quarterback rating. Rookie Luther Burden caught his first career touchdown when he hauled in a 65-yarder on a flea flicker in the first. The second-round pick from Mizzou finished with 101 yards on 3 receptions. Roma Dunze had 62 yards and a touchdown, giving him 4 for this season. Cole Kmet caught a 10-yard touchdown pass near the end of the first half. DJ Moore made it 31-14 with a 4-yard touchdown reception on a 4th down in the third quarter, capping a 19-play drive that ate up 9 minutes and 54 seconds. Tremaine Edmonds had 2 of Chicago's 3 picks, and the Bears came away with their 799th regular season victory. The Cowboys never really got their offense in gear and could not make the stops they needed after squeezing out a thrilling overtime win over the Giants last Sunday. It won't get any easier this week with Micah Parsons and the Packers visiting Dallas. Their first meeting since a contract standoff ended with a blockbuster trade before the opener. Dak Prescott was 31 of 40 passing and had 251 yards. He threw a touchdown to George Pickens in the second quarter, but was intercepted twice and sat out Dallas's final series. Bears tight end Colton Loveland was hurt in the first half. Cornerback Kyler Gordon missed his third game, and linebacker TJ Edwards was inactive. The Cowboys host the Packers next Sunday, while the Bears visit Vegas next Sunday. Andre Samizit booted a 55-yard field goal as time expired to give the Browns an improbable 13-10 victory over the Green Bay Packers on Sunday. The 1-2 Browns scored all of its points in the final 3 minutes and 38 seconds to snap an 8-game losing streak dating back to last season. According to Sport Radar, it is the first time in franchise history the Browns have won a game in which they had scored no points and trailed by at least 10 with 4 minutes remaining. The last time it happened in the NFL was when Denver rallied to beat Chicago on December 11th, 2011. Supplying the winning points was Samizit, who took the blame after he missed an extra point and field goal in the Browns' 17-16 loss to the Bengals in Week 1. The defense sacked Jordan Love 4 times before coming up with a crucial turnover. Cleveland got its first takeaway of the season with 3:18 remaining when Grant Delpit picked off Love's pass and returned it 25 yards to the Packers' 4-yard line. It was also the first turnover this year for Green Bay and marked the first time in 10 regular season starts dating back to last season that Jordan Love had been picked off. The offense struggled but came up with big plays when needed. Quinshon Judkins had 94 yards on 18 carries, including his first NFL touchdown on a 1-yard run up the middle to tie it at 10 with 3:02 remaining in the fourth quarter. Cleveland took over and went 16 yards in 5 plays. Flacco had an 8-yard completion to David Njoku on 3rd and 2 to get the ball to the Packers' 35. Flacco then spiked the ball, bringing Samizit on with 2 seconds remaining. He ended up being mobbed by teammates after his kick before running near the bleachers and doing a leap into the Cleveland famous Dog Pound, which was celebrating its 40th anniversary Sunday. Browns greats Hanford Dixon and Frank Minifeed came up with who came up with the nickname were in attendance. Love was 18 of 25 for 183 yards and a 3-yard touchdown to John Fitzpatrick with 3:23 remaining in the third to put Green Bay up 10-0. Packers right tackle Zach Tom, who missed last week's game against Washington due to an oblique strain, aggravated the injury on the first offensive play. Guard Aaron Banks was injured late in the first half. Safety Javon Bullard went off in the fourth quarter after appearing to be temporarily knocked out after taking a hit to the helmet. The Packers take on the Cowboys next Sunday. In a game heard here on WHOW, Fernando Tatis homered, and the San Diego Padres move closer to a postseason berth with a 3-2 win over the White Sox on Sunday.
Portion of the 2025 schedule with a loss to the Padres on Sunday afternoon. The last game on the south side was a picturesque day at the ballpark for one final summer day at Wright Field. Unfortunately, the Sox came up just a bit short, as Fernando Tatis Jr.'s 150th career home run turned out to be the difference in the ballgame.
Tatis with a long drive, left center, and it's a home run.
Padres reduced their magic number with a win as they set their sights on the Cubs as their likely opponent in the National League wildcard round. The Sox hit the road for the final 6 games of the season. First up, the Yankees in New York on Tuesday night. I'm Jeff Meller, and I'll have your pregame coverage starting at 5:30 with a 6:05 first pitch on the ESPN 1000 Hard Rock Casino White Sox Network.
And hear the Sox and Yankees action all week right here on WHOW. The surging Cincinnati Reds beat the Cubs 1-0 Sunday and moved into a tie with the Mets for the final wild card spot in the National League. The Reds have won a season-high 5 straight and 6 of 7. The Mets lost to the Nationals earlier in the day. The Sunday's game was delayed an hour and 11 minutes by rain. Matt McClain doubled and scored on a Gavin Lux to out-double to right, putting the Reds ahead 1-0 in the third. Lux collected 2 of the Reds' 5 hits against Jamison Tejon, who went 7 innings with no walks and 4 strikeouts. Red starter Andrew Abbott allowed 5 hits in 4 2/3 innings before the Reds turned to the bullpen. Nick Martinez pitched 2 1/3 shutout innings, and Graham Ashcraft allowed a hit in the 8th. The Cubs had runners on first and second with 2 outs in the 9th against Tony Santillan, who struck out Pete Crow Armstrong for his 7th save of the season. Cubs right-hander Cade Horton starts Tuesday's series opener against the Mets. Ivan Herrera hit a 2-run homer. Jose Fermin drove in 3, and the Cardinals beat the Brewers 5-1 Sunday. The Brewers still clinched the NL Central title, but they had to wait until the Cubs lost 1-0 at Cincinnati earlier in the hour. Matthew Liberatore held Milwaukee's lineup in check, striking out 6 in 5 innings while allowing just a run. Matt Svensson, Ryan Fernandez, and Riley O'Brien combined for 4 scoreless innings of relief. Herrera smashed a 419-foot home run over the left field bullpen against Robert Gasser in the third. Gasser was called up from AAA to make his season debut as the Brewers placed Brandon Woodruff on the injured list with a lat strain. St. Louis recorded only 3 hits but drew 7 walks. Eric Fetty, pitching at Busch Stadium for the first time since the Cardinals dealt him to Atlanta in July, walked the first 2 he faced before allowing a 2-run double by Fermin that stretched the lead to 4-0. The Cardinals begin a season-ending road trip Monday night with right-hander Michael McGreevy facing San Francisco right-hander Justin Verlander. In a race which Fords were fastest at New Hampshire, Ryan Blaney barely was best in class for the second round opener of the NASCAR Cup Series playoff Sunday. The 2023 champ led 116 of his number 12 Mustang, including the final 39, but had to fend off a furious charge by runner-up Josh Berry, who closed within a few car lengths with 10 laps before overdriving a corner. Blaney would pull away and win by 0.937 seconds Sunday in his 3rd victory of the season and 16th of his career. Blaney, who is trying to reach the Championship 4 season finale for the 3rd straight year, became the first driver to advance into one of the 8 final spots in the 3rd round of the Cup playoffs. Berry, whose number 21 Wood Brothers Racing Ford had a competitive alliance with Penske, overcame a spin on the 82nd lap and rebounded for his first round elimination after finishing last in each of the first 3 races in the playoffs. The Fords backed up their impressive performance in qualifying Saturday when Penske star Joey Logano won the pole position to cap a sweep of the top 3 starting spots with Blaney and Berry. The same trio led 273 of 301 laps on Sunday. William Byron was the highest finishing Chevrolet in 3rd. Logano took 4th after leading a race-high 147 laps, and the number 22 Ford, the Middleton, Connecticut native, started from the pole for the first time at New Hampshire, where he considers it his home track. After qualifying 27th, last among the 12 playoff drivers, Chase Elliott raced to a 5th place finish. Christopher Bell took 6th as the top finishing Toyota driver for Joe Gibbs Racing, which went undefeated in the first round of the playoffs. Kyle Larson took 7th, and Ross Chastain was 9th as playoff drivers took 8 of the 10 spots in the mile oval. The race turned awkward for Gibbs Racing at lap 110 when Denny Hamlin spun teammate Ty Gibbs into the turn 2 wall while racing for 11th. Gibbs, the only JGR driver who failed to qualify for the playoffs, seemed to be impeding the progress of teammates Hamlin and Christopher Bell when the incident happened. Gibbs briefly returned to the track before being forced to the garage with damage to his Camry. He finished 34th and refused to address the incident or what Hamlin said when directly asked about both. The second race of the NASCAR round of 12 is Sunday at Kansas Speedway. Kyle Larson won at the 1.5 mile track on May the 11th. Get sports anytime from your computer or mobile device at DeWittDailyNews.com.
Noah Atkinson here. As owner of Lincoln Printers and Sign Designs in Lincoln, I know small business is important to our communities. That's why I'm pleased to be the exclusive sponsor of the WHOW WEZC Lincoln Printers Business of the Month.
Quality Glass and Trim at 220 Northeast Street in Clinton is another longtime Clinton business. They offer glass sales and service, specializing in commercial, home, and auto. Quality Glass and Trim also does storm windows, glass